Welcome to SlamCast, where we interview creatives about their process and the grind of promoting themselves. We're your hosts. I'm Brea.
And I'm Neil. We're both studio technicians and producers here at Slam Academy, online and in-person music school based out of Minneapolis.
And today we are here with the wonderful guest, Mike Ratt, an incredibly talented bass music producer and the in-person Ableton live instructor here at Slam Academy. Give it up for Mike Ratt, everybody.
Let's give it up for him.
Hello.
Thanks for being here, Mike.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
Yay.
Yeah. We're excited to have you, Mike. I've known you for so long and don't know too much about your musical journey, so I'm super excited to talk about all this.
It's been a moment.
Yeah, bring us back to baby Mike Ratt.
Yeah. Baby Ratt was making music before it's just been always. It's been forever. So, yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, I was always into music. You grew up playing piano and then moved over to the drums at some point in my life. And at some point in my teenage, I think I was like probably a senior, and I discovered that you could make music on a laptop. I had been listening to like Chemical Brothers and a couple of other old school electronic artists in my teens, and it blew my mind. I remember the very first time, the first album that like I heard was Chemical Brothers. It was Block Rockin' Beats off Dig Your Own Hole. And when I heard that, like my life was changed. I was like, "What? You can do that's music? Those are noises." Yeah, right. I think a lot of us, I pretty much everyone has a moment like that. Maybe not like with the newer generations, they like hear this stuff on like a Target commercial, you know. But I think that most millennials and up have had a moment where they like hear something like that for the first time, and they did not realize that things weren't just bands. So when I discovered Fruity Loops, I was 17 or 18, and I started dinking around, and within about a year or two, one of my best friends, he had just come back from Berkeley, and I was a sophomore in college, and he says, "Mike, have you heard of Ableton?" I like remember this moment very distinctly in my head. He's like, "Have you heard of Ableton?" And that day, after a brief conversation, I had installed the trial, went through the steps in the, that young help view on the right side, and was just making beats immediately. And I was like, this is my jam. This is this forever. And so I was a sophomore in college at the time. And like in that moment, I was like, I'm dropping everything. I'm gonna just do this now. And my parents, bless their hearts, were like, you need to get a degree first. And to their credit, that was probably a good idea. But I graduated college with a English major, philosophy minor.
Nice.
I do think that helps with writing and stuff.
1,000%.
When we get talking to promotion, I actually think that that's like a good addition for sure.
100%.
But I graduated, and they stuck to their word, and I graduated, went to my first festival, Electric Forest, in 2012, and I remember seeing it was Knit Grit was on stage. She was at the Tripoli stage, and maybe it was the weather, maybe it was the air, the vibe, but just something about watching him on stage, the way he was interacting with his own music. Like there were at minimum 6,000, maybe 10,000 people watching him. I don't think he noticed. He was so into his own music. Like
I love watching shows like that.
I know, and it's
so
like you
good.
see all the DJs with like the freaking poses. They're getting up on the stage. They're throwing food at people. He didn't care. No, he was just dancing to his own music. His eyes were half closed most of the time. And in that moment, that specific moment, I said, yeah, I want to do that. This is what I want to do. Nothing in this planet will make me more happy than just doing that right there.
Yeah.
So I came home and I was like, yeah, I still want to do this. I want to move up to Minneapolis. I grew up in Iowa, by the way.
Oh, snap.
And the other thing about Iowa is just like, there was a small electronic music scene in Iowa City where I grew up, but the ceiling is low. And so it's like, if you want to do it professionally, you can't do it there. So I bid adieu to my hometown and moved up here in 2012. And I went to IPR, and that's where I met JP. And IPR was pretty Pro Tools focused, but JP's classes were a little safe haven for me. And anyone else that wanted to just make bass music. And I actually met JP. He was there, like his last 2 semesters there were just coincided with the time that I had gone there. Like if I had gone a year later, I wouldn't have met him. If I had gone a year earlier, Slam wouldn't have been open. So like it's insane coincidence there.
Oh,
and
That's
I graduated IPR the same like semester that he was like leaving IPR and going to do Slam. And I was like, where do I get more of this?
Whoa.
I need more.
Yeah.
I just loved his classes so much. I actually, back then, he actually assigned grades.
Oh.
Believe it or not. We don't do grades here at Slam.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But I got 100% on a JP final, which
Wow.
I know, right?
Dang.
Imagine JP
Yeah.
giving a final, giving grades. He's
Yeah.
not
Our
handing 100%
I
out
cannot
to
do
many
that.
people. And you know,
Get Yoda a grade.
why is it with the beats? This one is. And the reason why is because I think he could tell, and this is the same thing I look for in my students, that I was fully absorbed in my music. The final was just jam out on an original production for like 7 minutes. And this was back when Epic Mealtime was big, and I had I sampled a lot of bacon quotes, and I brought in an MPD, and I just loaded up a sampler, and I was just jamming on that. I had so much fun. I like lost myself in the music. And you look around in class and most people are a little nervous, like, and that's to be expected. Even at shows, we still get nervous. And I think that's actually kind of an important thing, because it's just a sign that you care.
Yeah.
But to me, it was almost like that moment at Nick Grit. Like I was like lost in my bacon sampler for 7 minutes. And I think he just saw that. He saw that. And so I went to Slam back in the first year, maybe second year or something. It was just baby steps. It was still in the space where Gamut Gallery was, and the old Handicraft Guild, rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I just really absorbed myself in those classes at Slam. And I was just always sitting front row, wouldn't put my hand down. Like there were moments, I feel like, where JP would be like, chill.
You're learning too much, Mike.
Just stop with the sponging. And I just never left. And then very quickly after that, he asked if I wanted to like TA assist some of his classes. And I just was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so that was 2012 and onward. And then in at some point I started teaching private lessons, and I, through that journey, found a real passion of teaching. Like I love teaching more than anything else. I like making music. Like if you're listening to this podcast or you're on this podcast, you probably enjoy music to some extent.
Do you enjoy music a lot?
And I love it too, but there's something about teaching that goes deeper for me, and it feels sacred, and like it's like real purpose. Not that making music and playing shows isn't purpose, but there's something about teaching that to me feels like, this goes beyond. And there's something about it that is intangible and ineffable and like indescribably important. And I love it so much. And I don't try to understand what all those things are, whether or not there's a 5th dimensional or a 6th dimensional entity like guiding me, or it's just, or the atheists were right and I just happen to like really enjoy this because of the way my brain chemistry works. Either way,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, either way, I love it. And I really enjoy the fact that I get to be in class twice a week and have a squadron of amazing students. Like every single program, I've made friends, and it's like, now I feel like I get to be what my mentor was for me to other people. I get to be that.
Right.
And it's really important for me to like step back and think about that, because the process of having like a true mentor is an art form that has lost in the American higher educational system.
Sure.
It's not entirely devoid. Like I know even in a university, like you're going to find teachers that are really good, but they're few and far between.
Yeah.
And I feel like social media even has made that even farther away
Yep.
from us because people are on YouTube looking at how to do things all the time
Absolutely.
instead of like calling somebody and be like, who do you know that I can sit down with and talk to
Right.
about the specific thing I'm doing?
Right.
It's crazy that I wouldn't have found a mentor if I didn't come here. Like JP and Bionic I would consider two of my biggest, like I call them my music daddies because they're the reason that I'm like anywhere near where I'm at right now. And they would, it's really cool to have people like that. And you're a JP and Bionic to your students, which is freaking crazy.
Yeah.
A direct line to you to get information is awesome.
Right.
Mhm.
So now when I used to go to JP for advice about music production, now I go to him for advice about this is going on in my class. What would you do? And it's usually good things, but like teaching now. So it's already been over 2 years, but he gave me the role of in-person and Ableton program instructor 2 years ago. And this is like my most coveted thing that I've ever done with my life. And it's been like, I don't want to be cliche and be like, my students teach me, but they do. Like you learn and like, it's different than a private lesson, which has so many merits in and of itself. But like a class is like an entity. Each class takes on its own breathing life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to adjust every single time. Not too much, like JP has the curriculum laid out, and he has given me like a lot of creative control on how to move each class in which direction. We workshop ideas every single class. Like I'll be like, hey, I did this on this class for the recording thing. Like there's one day early in the program where we'll learn about recording audio, and it's right after we learn about MIDI. And what I love to do is I'll record some audio and then convert it back into MIDI, and then convert that MIDI into audio, just to just go back and forth, do a little ping pong. And this is just something like I thought of one day, and I was like, oh, this is really going to drive home the idea that you can work in both fields.
Yeah.
And students were like, I had no idea. And it's like, people don't know about it, but it's there. And it's also just helps cement fundamentals. And so that's just an example of some of the things that like I'll just like try something in class, and if it works I'll like come to him and be like, Dad, check it out. And, having his support with that kind of stuff has been monumental in keeping the classes like feeling really alive here. So that's it in a nutshell. I feel like it goes deeper. As you both probably know, I'm adopted, and I recently discovered my birth family, and discovering.
I did not know that.
Oh, well,
yeah.
That's knowledge now that you have.
Yeah, cool.
And my entire birth family is creatives, and it's like it's so. Actually, I didn't even mean to wear this hoodie today. Look, America. But my birth dad, when we met each other, he got this for me. He is an artist, and he slings art out in California, and the majority of my birth family on that side is singers and musicians and digital artists and what have you.
Cool.
And my adoptive family, my Pendergasts, love them. They're not called to it in the same way that I am called to it. Like if I would not. Like there's just this call in me that it's like I can't do anything else. I don't want to do anything else. If I did anything else, I might as well just be dead.
Yeah.
Like I don't, there's no purpose in life if I can't do this. So discovering all of that and like seeing how far back it actually goes and how it's like actually related to your genes and like who you are as a person has been incredible. And I feel like I've like after meeting them and getting the chance to like get to know them, I feel connected with that and artistry more than ever.
That's awesome.
So that's why I would say it goes back further than Baby Mike Rat. It goes back generations. It's like tied deep in your genes. And
DNA.
So if we ever have a student that it's like if I find out their parents are musicians, I'm like, hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Let's go, let's do it. So yeah, that's the gist. That's the gist of it in 30 seconds.
That was a good. That was a good 5 minutes. You're good. Just kidding. That was awesome, man. I didn't know that about
thank
you.
you for
Of course,
giving
of
us the
course.
background
Yeah,
of that.
Yeah.
So as you were coming up and learning how these music, who were some of your biggest like influences musically or just in your life?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I actually like asking that question in class because I feel like it's better than asking who's your favorite artist.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a different question.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously Chemical Brothers, like that was the moment. I would freaking love to get a Chemical Brothers tattoo just for that reason alone. But also I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop. The first album I ever owned was Hello Nasty by the Beastie Boys.
Nice.
I would leave MTV on. We were talking about leaving YouTube on all the time. I would leave MTV on. I would leave it on all day just to hear Intergalactic.
That song's so sick.
It's still a banger.
So good.
So they were really huge. The original Gorillaz album, the first two, Demon Days as well, but that first one, man, when Clint Eastwood came out, I was like,
And you know, there's all live instruments too. He
Yeah.
doesn't sample anything.
really?
Yeah, although everything
On the first one?
Yeah, and then when he
That doesn't make that does make sense.
yeah, everything's
Yeah.
performed, but and they don't use any samples. They use
Yeah.
all instruments, and they tour the
Cool.
they toured the whole album with all live instruments.
Yeah, I remember
Crazy.
early on trying to find pictures of what the band looked like live, and it was like, it's not. Because it was so conceptual. Now it's like, they have so many big artists and big names like Snoop Dogg or whatever. And but those early days you'd be like looking at like pre-today internet and you'd see, I remember there's one picture where it's like a screen with silhouettes. So they were like keeping the illusion that the band was some like animated 2D.
The thing is the band is actually just one dude.
Yeah.
And then he just like the name Gorillaz is the idea of collabing.
Because it's the guy from Blur and then an artist.
Mhm.
That's Gorillaz.
Yeah.
And then people are
Just brought in.
Yeah. So I now that I'm thinking about it, that has been more. I'm making this realization right now in real time.
Wow.
Keep this in mind. But with the new project Skavi, with our intent, Alex and I, the intent with this project is collaboration. Because it was born out of collaboration. He and I just sat down one day and we're like, let's collab. And we're like, this is the best
Hell
ever.
yeah. Collabs are the best.
It's such a good feeling when you click with somebody and
It's
you can
great.
just make music
It's
so
great.
easily.
Absolutely. And now I'm realizing I was always listening to something like that when I would listen to Gorillaz / do karaoke. Because if you're ever going to get me to do karaoke, it's probably going to be Rock the House. Or Clint Eastwood. I'll do one of those two. Those are the two.
Both those songs are so good.
And then I guess the other, so hip hop is big for me too. Aside from Beastie Boys, I listen to a lot of Jurassic 5. I think had a big one on my teen years. The album Quality Control, and that song is also way too good. But it led me to learn how to scratch later in my life, and that's like kind of my instrument of choice right now is scratching. I think that they're like, everyone should have something that they do with their hands.
Yeah.
If they can, like, you don't have to learn piano. You just learn something that you can do with your hands. So you can play live that is not just so mathematical and just clicks and clacks and stuff. And scratching was like, to me, scratching felt like a hi-hat and a snare drum. So I just picked up on it immediately. It's so rhythmic.
Yeah, it's very percussive.
And then I just use the skills I have now to do things like, well, let's either produce a 4-second to scratch with. Shout out the Tipper movement, because that's he's basically revolutionized.
Making scratch sentences of weird noises you can just hop on with.
Right, exactly. Or go and sample, and this is my preferred method. Go and sample like 10 hours of Adult Swim shows.
Let's go.
I have probably 13 or 14 scratch, like Adult Swim show, like Aqua Teen, C-Lab. I've done 3 Rick and Morty ones where I'll just super cut like a bunch of quotes into about a minute.
Yeah.
And they're all very close together. And so I can just scratch with them.
Scratch sentence.
And That's basically what it is. It's a scratch sentence.
That's what they're called, actually.
Oh wait, really?
Yeah,
Whoa.
that's
I did not
You
know.
ra-
I was
I'm
calling
learning
them
to scratch.
scratch packs.
I'm learning to scratch as well, and
I
I'm
didn't
doing a
even
lot of
know
like
that.
learning online through like teachers, and that's what they call them as scratch sentences, where they have like the aw, fresh,
Wow.
yeah, and stuff. And
Okay, two things. One, that's cool. I didn't know that. Two,
Hell yeah.
we got to scratch.
I would love to.
We got to get that going on. Actually have a student that has been really, really begging me to start a scratch session here at Slam, like weekly or monthly.
That would be sick to
Ooh.
get all,
That'd be
get
really
all the
cool.
turntable list in here doing that. Like just have, I see it like have 4 of them set up like facing each other with the PA banging.
I think that'd be a good time.
So cool. We could share music to scratch over and hang out.
We could get turntable shaped food, aka pizza.
Oh my God.
Let's go. All right, I guess we're now doing a scratch thing. We'll look into the future for that.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. Look into indeed.
Subscribe to Scrub Daddy for that.
Yeah. Another thing.
Sorry, that was an inside joke.
That one took a second. The other thing I would say about hip hop in general, and this is something that I think is like core to someone's musical identity, is that I grew up not only listening to hip hop beats constantly, but as a drummer, my teacher got me really into funk drumming, which in my mind is some of the pinnacle of drumming you can have. Like, it's just so, funk music in general is like insane. It's so good.
Yeah.
It demands a talented musician.
Yeah.
There's no just 4-chord dinking along singing a silly song. It's like, no, we're going to be syncopated. We're going to come off of 4/4 and do like a 17/8 bar, and everyone's got to be on it. So growing up, doing that kind of drumming and then listening to that kind of style of beat dictated what I was going to make now. So now when I start a tune, more often than not, it is around 85 to 90. And that is just because hip hop loves to sit there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's going to allow me to play around with the drum beat the most. I've tried making 140. We have a couple 140 tunes, but in my mind, 140 is a great tempo for your synths to have a good time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as good for your drums.
That makes a lot of sense.
You know?
I've come to find that like in that space, you basically see, I'm going to cut everything I just said, but your music is very hip hop influenced, and I've come to find that when you're trying to make synths play with drums really well, it is in that 80 to 90.
Yeah.
It's a lot funkier, and it doesn't take itself so serious.
No, it doesn't.
In that tempo.
That's really important for me, is that the song doesn't take itself too seriously. I think that's a prerequisite for like a good section of call and response. I need my synths to be able to talk to each other and talk to the entire ensemble. And I feel like many genres do many different things very well. Like if you think of like techno wouldn't. I say that. I've heard some like Dirty Bird tunes where the kick kind of moves off the floor. I really like that. But like techno wouldn't move the drum beat too much. 140 dubstep doesn't move. Trap doesn't, But anything at 85 to 90, like halftime, you can really just play around with that. And it also lends itself to scratching very well. Try scratching on a dubstep tune.
It's hard.
Good luck.
140 is like, we don't really like it over here with that.
No, it's not. It's not easy. So that is just like, I just know that now with Alex, we branch out a lot. We just put out a 140 remix, and I think that we have a tune somewhere that's like breakbeat 120. And I think with Alex, it's like part of our goal is to make as many genres as possible, and so that's fine. But if I'm just chilling on my own, it's probably gonna start at halftime speeds.
Yeah. I used to be 140, but my life tends to live in the 80s, late 80 or late 90s BPM.
For sure. My template is 89 because that's the year I was born.
Aw.
And I'm like, you gotta represent. So you got a bunch of Gen A and Zoomers that are setting their tempo to 3:03. I don't know the generational rules for that.
That one took me a while. I don't know why. I was like, wait, they're setting it at what? Oh
It's
my God.
it's the opposite of hyperpop.
Oh no.
Molasses pop.
Oh, no.
Molasses pop. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I think I would like that.
Yeah. So that's I think that's like probably the generalized version of where my influence come from. Also, shout out Brian Cooper and West Music for introducing me to funk, because that was monumental. I think that on top of that, just like riffing off the funk thing, I listen to not as much, but like a solid amount of jazz and live music in like my car, at home as often as I can, because I think that while I'm never going to produce those kinds of music, they lend to being able to write a solo or a lead or something, or understand what call and response is and does to your music. And I think that's been really helpful in writing melodic pieces, because I do write a lot of melody and a lot of harmony. Alex and I will write bangers and we'll just have fun with noise. But if I'm left to my own devices, I can't write a song for too long without being like, this needs friggin' seventh dominant major or whatever. And then like counter melody to go against the other melody that I need. These like that I feel it in like my heart space to like put these melodies in, and it drives me insane if I don't have them. For some reason that like gets taken off with Alex, because we're in a different mindset when we're producing. We're just like having fun and experimenting. But on my own, I gotta have some like something like that.
Some soul, some funk.
So I think that is a good practice to be in. Find something that's not like, I think if you want to make bass music and you only ever listen to bass music, you're only going to make bass music that's been made.
Yeah.
You know?
Very true.
Find something. Go listen to some banjos. I don't care. Listen to like 2 hours of a hand drum. Actually.
Ooh.
That sounds really relaxing.
It does, actually. Sounds like the start of a meditative
would
state.
love to just have a hand drum, just in general. I don't feel like it would hurt your hands to just like slap it all day. But whatever. So music influences.
Nice.
For varied. That's an interesting question also, because it's a better question than who your favorite artist is, because the answer is going to be more intense,
more involved.
Yeah, there's so many different parts of your life that your music shows, and it's fun to watch generations evolve genres too, and then those genres influencing the next generation of music, and it all just kind of works in a circle.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man.
Cool. So you're booking your shows now, right? Like you're playing quite a bit.
Yeah. So
sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good.
No, that's it's evolved over the years, and the way I approach it now is definitely different than the way I approached it 5 years ago, which is radically different than the way I approached it when I started.
Yeah.
When I started, and this is my advice to everyone, and not everyone's going to be able to follow this advice, because not everyone is insanely extroverted, which helps a lot.
Are you insanely extroverted?
I am. I'm less extroverted now that I don't drink, but I can still crank out a lot of energy for a couple hours if need be. But when I started, I was just aggressively confident and persistent, and I think that is required. If you don't have that, then you need connections. Regardless, you need connections, and it's either someone you've known for your whole life that just is well set up to help you, which is rare. You can't really bank on that.
No.
Or you got to go out and make those connections. So when I moved up to Minneapolis, I played a couple of shows in Iowa City, for sure, but I feel like moving to Minneapolis is a good milestone, because there I just came up here. I knew 2 or 3 people, and I was like, I just have to make this happen right now.
Yeah.
And within a month or 2 or 3, I was playing shows, and that was because I would literally just go to shows that I wanted to go to, and then figure out who the promoter was if they were there, and then just go talk to them right then and there, and just be like, hey, this is what I play. You're gonna book me. Don't even ask them. Do not even ask them. Just tell them they're going to book you.
Yeah.
And some of the words that came back from these promoters were, wow, you're persistent. wow, you're confident. At the time, I took them as compliments. Now I think that they were just making commentary.
Yeah.
But regardless, it worked. And then when you get your foot in the door is easier to open. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then at that point, you just have to prove yourself via skills. Like, are you worthy? So that's how I think most people get a start. I've seen many a very talented producer get left by the wayside because they won't put themselves out there.
Yeah.
Me too.
And it's upsetting, you know, and I have to remind myself, like, maybe they don't want to play the shows that I want to play. That's, you know, some people are content just like making music forever in their basement and not worrying about playing shows. And that's fine. That's cool for those people. But sometimes I'm like, you could be greater.
Yeah.
Music was made to make people dance.
I know. So sometimes I get a little bummed out when I see people that I'm like, you have so much potential.
Yeah.
And if they were just willing to get out there and push themselves and promote themselves, they would make it further. Easier said than done.
That's a hard leap.
It's so hard, you know, especially now when anxiety is higher than ever. And people are more and more behind computers and less talking with people in general. It's like, it's a big ask, and it's one that I recommend. I wouldn't say like you have to do this or you'll fail.
Yeah.
But it's gonna help. If you don't, then if you have a resource like Slam Academy, plug. No, but like for real though, you know, I have students that are introverted and they don't know who to talk to, but I can see their talent, and I can take that talent and I can therefore channel it through the people that I know. So as someone that has some resources myself now, after like being in the scene for well over a decade, I can be like, hey, this promoter, I know you put on these kind of shows. I have this student. They're one of my bright and best. They make this kind of music. Here's one of their mini mixes. This is their first original. Listen to how good this first original is.
Yeah.
And then I can just like hype them up. And often I don't even need to go that far. People will just be like, hey, you're Mike. I know you're a teacher at Slam. We've been working together for years. Whoever you recommend, I'll just put on a lineup somewhere. And it might just be an opening slot.
Yeah.
That's
where everyone starts. A lot of people start, not everybody. But.
Right. So while it may be hard for you to run around and talk yourself up and be super cocky and arrogant like me, it is a little bit easier to find maybe a space or something where you can meet like-minded individuals. And if you're meeting like-minded individuals, you just need one of them to be that kind of champion or voice for the community, which we have a lot of here. We're very blessed with the amount of that we have here in the cities in general, but also at Slam for being that kind of hub. So I'm sure it exists in like many major cities. We definitely have one of the better communities like that.
Yeah.
If you are producing, if you're listening to this and you are in a cornfield and you're in a small town, then run. Just get out of there. Get out of there. Or find something online, I think would be my other piece of advice. Like find, you know, having our Discord has been uber legit, and finding communities now like that could be very, very helpful. I found a couple of other communities on Discord that I found, like sound designing communities and stuff like that, or just subreddits or something. Yeah, where you gotta find like one connection that's good. You don't need every connection to be solid. You just need one or two that are gonna help you move in the right direction. So like one of my bigger connections was getting in with infrasound and joining that crew early on. I think the only one I wasn't a part of early on was just the very first one, because it had happened a couple months before I moved up. And then like very quickly being like, I'll help stage set up. I'll show up a week early and set lights up in the forest or something. I'll do this and that. And like being a part of something which is now so huge and is like an unstoppable force from those early moments where nobody knew infrasound was going to get to where it is today back then.
It was just a cool place for trippy music to be played. I love infrasound back then.
My buddy and I would just show up early, have a good time, slap some bags, set some stages up, and leave and be like, wow, let's hope this lasts.
Right? We get to do that again hopefully next year.
Yeah. And then lo and behold, it is what it is now. And I get to kind of kick back and be more of an artist and not worry about the stage setup. But, there was like, I had to put in some hours too. I had to like I cut myself on a couple of stage setups, just like moving heavy pieces of metal, and be like, "Yeah, this is I'm doing time." You know?
But you got to put in that work early on, even to meet people and to like
Right.
have that camaraderie between a group of musicians that you're all
Yes.
setting something up that you all want to go see later.
Exactly.
That's a crucial part to like the whole process, I think.
And I'm not saying you have to go cut yourself on a stage
No,
setup,
please
but
don't.
like a little flying here, or joining a street team, or doing some online promotion or something, you'll get noticed, you know.
Yeah, because showing you're there to support the community, I think helps out a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And especially, I think that like now more than ever, we're kind of approaching this age, thankfully, where I think that people with large egos are not getting the same bookings they used to. I think that people that put the community first are being noticed more than ever. I've seen like a lot of the communities in the EDM scene in the cities right now are community forward and mindfulness forward. Like the show that we just did with Dave, Nautical Divine, Dumpling, Sammy, Aaron, got to shout all of them out because they're amazing people. That was a community first show. It was mindful, and also like the shows that Rob with Cosmic Synergy has been putting on. They're all mindful based, and they're all doing great because people, I think, are just like, we're evolving for one. We're now able to put together these spaces that don't feel like a spot for people to just get effed up on.
Yeah.
And like just come mess yourself up on some good sound waves. And some vibes. And those like ego-based DJs probably still live in like a rhythm seam somewhere. I don't know. I'm not paying attention to those waves. And that's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on the more like mindfully created music. And we have this space now where you can be a little woke, and it actually, that helps, you know. People are like, oh, look at this person, look at how humble this guy is, we should book him.
I see that in other genres too, and people who are like singer-songwriters, because I'm not in the EDM scene. I'm more in like the band and the live instrument part of the music scene here in Minneapolis, and I see that too with like the community of Sociable Cider Works. It's growing as a whole instead of an ego-driven force, and people support that more than the individual who's just like, I'm all this, come to my show.
Right.
No, let's all do this together.
Definitely. And Minneapolis also has like a growing, or just like a championed sobriety scene now that we have the legalization of other good drinks. You find them on every brewery list. You know, it was crazy, this is a side note, but I just got a vent.
Please.
When we went to I went to California not that long ago. There's like no seltzers on any menu at all. California.
Like weed seltzers or
weed
like
seltzers. We were in LA, we were in San Diego. I could not find a one.
At that expo I went to, they were talking about how that we're so privy to it, but it's also still just a new industry of making seltzers and figuring out how to package and distribute. I sat at a panel and listened to it for a while. I was like, what are we
nerd?
But so we're blessed to, like you said, have that. And off camera we'll talk about, I can just let you know about like Virtual Riot came here for sobriety.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in his interview, that was the first thing he said. We covered it, and so so like you saying that, and then him being like, you know, they call it Minnesota, it's a great community, and he's like, it's a very good interview.
Oh, I had no. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's real though, and like I was, not to say like the trip was cool, but I was taken aback because I still like to have something to drink with my friends, and I definitely would never tell my fiance like, don't have a glass of wine at this nice dinner. Like, no, I'd be like, you should pair that steak with a bold red. You know, but then I remember we were out to a very nice dinner, a good restaurant, and I was like, what's your NA options? And he's like, we got orange juice. And I was like,
whoa,
dude, I don't want the orange juice that you use for mixed drinks. I don't know. Yeah. Not even like a LaCroix. And I was just like, that was wild. So we are pretty blessed with that here. Just the way things have panned out with the legalization in this state have made it so many restaurants are on the sobriety tip. And that is also helping push this scene forward a little bit more.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The show on Friday was there was a moment. So after we played, we transitioned to Dave's set, and he's introducing this new music video. I have never seen a room full of so many wooks quiet down and sit down and like pay attention. I remember someone being like,
I saw the post.
I feel like I'm in camp right now. And Dave's the camp counselor. I was like, that was the vibe. But it was like, it was so amazing. And we wouldn't have been able to do that if people were like just
wasted.
Yeah, wasted and not paying attention. But
drunk
people
and
were
not
like,
mindful.
Yeah, they were there for a reason, which was compounded by the fact that Dave's new release was about, his journey with sobriety. So
that's awesome.
It felt even more important to be there and represent as someone who
is Dave a local?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He's a great dude. And it's not easy to like reapproach the scene after you quit drinking, but there's ways to do it. And like
we have a good scene here, apparently.
We've got a good scene to do it in, and you there's some tricks. There's tricks to learn, basically, if you're gonna go about it. And it's like relearning how to ride a bike, except that the bike is in like a different dimension. And you're not in your corporeal form.
Would you want to elaborate that?
Absolutely.
A little bit? Like, what are some tips
that's a good thing to talk about, just in case any of you out there are attempting to integrate with a scene that does substances that you are not willing to put in your body. Congrats, you've done it. But the things I've had to learn were, first and foremost, and this was the hardest lesson, and this is one that I didn't even realize was going on at first, but I was trying to go to shows for about like a year and a half. I would go to a show and I would get upset with myself because I wasn't matching my old energy. And I had to say that out loud to my fiance and then she had to say, if she was like, repeat that back to yourself, Michael, you aren't your old energy. That's the point. And I was like, oh, dang. It was so in front of me. Like, it was in front of my face, but it's like, why would I want to match my old energy? Isn't that the point?
Yeah.
The point was to not be that anymore. And then I'd go to a show and be like, why can't I while out with the boys like a gremlin? Because you're not a gremlin anymore. You've shifted into half elf mode.
I was like, I've noticed the older that I've gotten, I'm further and further from the front of the stage. I'm still dancing and having a good time and enjoying the music, but I'm like, I don't need to be sometimes right in the middle of the crowd, but I have a lot more fun on the side, just enjoying and man. And I'm not fully sober, but I've got off all other stuff besides weed and alcohol, and I'm now just fun drinking a couple beers at the show and having fun that way instead of like needing to be on any kind of substance too. So you're not doing the same energy, and it might be a good thing sometimes.
It is a good thing now, but that realization kind of opened up a lot of other realizations too, and this is a big one. I kind of set some ground rules for myself, because I used to be able to get home from work, pregame pretty hard, get to the show, drink a lot, and look at my watch and it's 2:05, they're kicking us out. Go find an after party to keep getting drunk at, and then come home or just crash on someone's couch.
Right.
And for me, this actually goes back to genetics too, because discovering my birth family made me understand how like deeply rooted alcoholism is in my life. The way that alcohol hits my system is I get an energy boost and I get a lot of dopamine and serotonin, like all the, maybe not so, I think it's dopamine. If it's substance related, I think you're getting dopamine. But the way it hits my body is I get more than other people. So I freaking love drinking. Yeah. And it's actually, in my mind, it's a safeguard to assume that if I were to have a drink right now, I'd love it. I'll just assume that for the rest of my life now. Yeah. Whereas other people, like, they're like, I drink and I don't feel good. I'm like, that's probably good. Like, good for you.
Your body's telling you the right thing.
Your body is reacting
to poison correctly.
Oh, wow. My body doesn't recognize that poisons are poison. Oh, no. And they're like, more.
Thinks it's a fun little time.
Yeah. So, so what I do now is I just set myself ground rules where, you'll hit this point at a show that I call like a diminishing return, where the longer you stay at the show, the less fun you're going to start to have. It kind of like kind of ramps up. And where it used to just ramp up and stay up or keep going up, now it ramps up, kind of peaks for a little bit, and then I'll start getting tired and I'll start thinking about bed and Netflix.
I want to go home and relax.
And I at first would try to just like push that final bit and be like, no, I have to stay till 2 because I'm not a good supporter of the music industry if I go home early. But it's also like, you showed up, you gave them some money for a ticket, you supported maybe some local acts or something to begin with or something like that. And if you want to go home, you should go home.
Yeah.
You can just do that.
Because what will happen, what was starting to happen was I was beginning to resent going to shows, which is insane to think about. Like someone who's been producing music for over a decade and has been playing shows for so long doesn't like them anymore. It's starting to hate them
because you knew it was such a long night ahead of you and you had to do all of these things.
And I would I would not look forward to shows. I would be like, I don't want to go to this show. And Angie would be like, no, you should, you haven't been in a while. And I'd be like, no. What if I stayed home and painted Warhammer all night? That sounds more comforting. But when I realized like it's okay to go home at midnight, that's fine. And you also, the other thing is like, you don't have to run around the room saying goodbye to everyone. You can do an Irish goodbye.
Hell yeah.
A sober Irish goodbye.
So great.
Say bye to like one person on the way out and be like, oh, I put in my time.
Just let somebody know and be like, I'll text you when I get home.
So those were big realizations I had to make to start enjoying shows again. Those were the big ones. A couple other things is like, you never know what to do with your hands. This is like a conversation I've had with like a lot of my sober friends. Like, what do you do? Wear a hoodie with nice pockets.
Oh, okay.
Cross your arms and then close your eyes. And then if anyone asks, you're like, I'm enjoying the music, which is actually low key. Like what I do most of the time is like, if I'm not talking to someone, I like my eyes are usually closed and I'm actually just focused on the music at this point. I used to be more like at the bar having conversations and then like I'd hear like my song and I'd like run to the dance floor, probably knock into a couple of people. Now it's just like, go find a nice spot, close your eyes, just like listen. And now it lends itself more to being inspired to go home. And there's a bad side effect of all of that resentment was that I wasn't going to shows for a little bit and I would be less inspired. I think shows are really inspiring. Like going to a show can like really help your own production. So I was not getting that in my life, and now that I can sneak that in with no resentment at this point. It's just better. It's nice. So those are a couple of tips I have for all you sober cats and customers out there. It's not easy, and it's taken me 2 years to get to the point where like that, now I'm like, oh, I can have fun again. It's crazy to think though, like 2 years of like not really feeling comfortable with this place that felt like home for so long. And now I felt like jarred about it. I will say the first time I went to infrasound and I didn't drink, it was weird the first night, but waking up that second morning, like
actually feeling like a human.
Waking up with the morning and then like getting out of my tent and a little stretch and be like, I'm gonna do some yoga. That was crazy. That was an eye opener. I was like, wait, I can feel good at the festival.
Whoa.
That's nuts. I've considered bringing like weights and running shoes to a festival just so I can get I think that's a little extra.
That's a lot to carry.
It's a lot to carry. It'll hurt your gas mileage. You don't want to do it. But there is that nice that nice long road alongside Harmony Park that I feel like I could sneak in a little morning run or something.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But
you don't need weights for that.
No.
Yeah.
Just your God-given legs. Good. So yeah, that's been my journey with that, and it's still a learning process.
Yeah.
But to anyone that is not comfortable with it or also learning, there is hope. It just takes a long time, and you have to stay with it. I don't want to give up this thing that I love. You know what I mean?
Yeah, really, and then really quick. So when you were becoming sober, did you both feel that you might be scared that you might stunt your creativity at any point?
Yes, that's a great question. Totally, absolutely, 100%. The opposite ended up happening.
That's awesome.
Sweet. But so pre in the before times, as I believe that everyone is calling them, when I was drinking a lot and making music drunk all the time, I would spend a lot of time drinking and making music on Ableton constantly. But it was quantity over quality. Like I thought if you put in the time, then you would get the results. And I'd sit there and I'd like just pound beers and make music till 4 a.m, and I was like, I'm getting so much done. It's just no, like none of it. So much of it is first of all, if you get drunk enough, then you're not producing anymore. You're just listening to the same loop over and over. Like you've lost the ability to turn knobs properly.
Yeah.
And that would happen a lot. And then the other thing would just be like, I just listened to it the next morning and be like, it's literally just like a beat, and all of the MIDI on everything melodic is so stupid. It's like it just wasn't. There wasn't really progress being made.
Yeah.
Another side of that is my standards were lower for what I considered to be a finished tune. So I think that if you like look at my music library from pre-COVID to now, there is like a drastic turn on where things like really amp up, and it does coincide with sobriety. It coincides with like a couple of things. I think COVID changed all of us a little bit, and sobriety definitely helped. I also in that time decided to take some classes. For the first time ever, I took a class from Chi and I took a class from Seppa, two of my favorite producers, and learned some techniques from them that also altered the way I look at music making in general. I don't think I would have been able to apply it had I been drinking, because it's really, you have to be willing to involve your time in the sounds that you're making and make conscious decisions for the betterment of your music. So all of that kind of happened at the same time, which made me feel like my music got very much. I don't want to call anyone's like. I don't want to call my music good. I just know that it got better.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It felt like overnight. It felt very like sudden. The changes, and so if you think that, and the crutch thing is like, I would not be. It took creativity comes in waves for all of us. I think that if you are the kind of person that can sit down and make music 5 times a week forever, we need to study your DNA. Like, we gotta get you in a lab. We gotta synthesize this, because the majority of creatives are not doing that. And I think that's like a myth that people are, if you're a creative, you're like supposed to just be working in the studio constantly. You should be pushing yourself to doing it as often as you can, for sure. But if you're looking at these people that are doing it every single day, and you're trying to hold yourself to that standard, you're probably going to A, get pissed at yourself, and then B, fail to hold those standards, because most people aren't like that.
No.
So I feel like alcohol was a crutch for me to get into Ableton, for sure. Like it would be easier to sit down with Ableton if I had a 6-pack.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, what I had to just kind of rewrite was just my own schedule and my own habits, because I've been into the practice of like rewriting habits and setting weekly schedules for myself, and that proved to be more productive than anything, because in the time I spend in the studio making my own music every week, I'm getting so much more done than just sitting alone drunk in my room every night making stuff that I don't want to play, making stuff that even if I did play, it would be worse than what I'm making now. You know what I mean? So
motivating.
Yeah. The habits part is huge. Like, people sleep on habitual practice. It's insane. Like, if you just don't try to set all your habits overnight. Just choose one. What's one thing that you want to do better? If it's music, for me, it was choosing a couple of times. Like, so I teach 2 times a week, and to me, that's like, okay, I'm interacting with music, but then it's like, well, I also have to be producing. So I chose, Alex and I generally do once a week we'll meet up, and then I'll try to do once a week where I just play. That can either be scratching or just DJing at home or whatever, coming
Yeah.
in here and using the CDJs. But generally those time frames are consistent. And that was the thing, is like the time frames need to be consistent. If you're trying to work with someone else, you can't be like, what time you want to meet up this week? Like Alex and I are like, Sundays.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how you get it done.
Sundays.
Yep.
This time.
Mhm.
Maybe you
And
can
you-
move from like noon to 1 or something like that. But it's like,
But then you make your day around that
Yes.
instead of trying to hopefully get that.
if it's
Yeah.
in your brain that you're already going to do it before you formulated the plan, then you're going to do it.
Yeah.
If it's in your brain that maybe you should hit someone up to do something and
Right.
see what they're up to,
You're
then
gonna
you're
forget about it.
yeah, or
You're
one of
gonna-
you is gonna flake, you know.
Yeah.
So setting that schedule for yourself is important. And pro tip: you can do this with anything.
Yeah.
It can be
Yeah.
laundry. It can be
Mhm.
going on a run. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. That is like monumental. So that was how I broke the crutch
Hmm.
and like
That's cool.
metaphorically threw the crutches aside and started to run.
That's awesome.
That is really cool.
Yeah, and I feel, the nice thing about working with Alex is that when we're in the studio, we are getting stuff done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like we're just making music.
Sitting there and making stuff happen.
Rarely do we sit down together and feel unproductive for the day, because you just need one of you to have a little bit of a idea, and then all of a sudden it just compounds.
Yeah.
Having someone else there helps out,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
especially if you work really well with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So
Hell yeah, dude.
that's how you break the crutch. Set those habits up.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
I'm
sure a lot of
it's
people out there are gonna
it's super helpful.
relate to that.
And 100% on that thing. Like, don't hold yourself to the standards of like the people that sit in the room and just make music.
Because
Yeah.
they're crazy, to be honest.
They're nuts.
They're nuts.
And also sometimes I'm like, how are your social skills?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've already established
Gotta
social
have a
skills are
little
also
balance.
important.
Gotta have some balance there.
Yeah, totally.
Can you really quick just shout out your and Alex's project name
Yeah,
again?
so Skavi is Skavi is our new project.
Cool.
It is based in collaboration. So while our first release was just the two of us,
Mhm.
our goal is for every single EP to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or more collaborators on it forever.
Cool.
wanna
Yeah,
collab.
I'm down. Let's
Let's
do
do
it.
it.
Let's do
Seven
it.
Sword
Skavi collab.
And this was, like Alex had this idea for a long time. Skavi is a Swedish saying that means "shall we?"
Ooh, cool.
It's just a saying, and I'm like,
like
that's
that.
so perfect. So like immediately, I was like, well, I'm down.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Workshopped like a couple other names, and I was like, it's
Skavi-
like when you get you get a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
name for a project in your head.
Yeah. Okay,
it's
yeah,
not-
that's it.
It's, you've
You
already,
can't-
it's already
You can't
cemented.
move
It's
on.
the whole
Cements
idea.
it,
Yeah.
So it was born out of like, I've collaborated with other people in the past, and it's always fun,
Mhm.
but you don't always click with someone on like a bro to bro, like let's hang out
Yeah,
every day
sometimes it's just
level.
not there.
Yeah, and so I think we made a couple of projects, realized which tunes were the best, and then I think at one point, our like third or fourth tune together, we're like, this is not. We're doing this forever, right?
Yeah.
And I think
This
we
is
were
dope.
both just like, we just kind of realized like this is the project had been born. We just needed to talk about it. Make it
Yeah.
Facebook official.
That's really
So
cool.
so it's awesome working with him. Alex is the funniest person I've ever met, and so sitting in the studio together is
Mhm.
like, it's
So fun.
it's a comedy variety hour.
Amazing.
It's stupid funny. And he has an incredibly interesting approach to sound design and music creation. And it's interesting because we really balance each other out a lot. I think now our production styles have meshed to the point where we could just bounce music back and forth to each other, and it makes more sense. When we started, it was more of like a yin and yang kind of a thing.
Mhm.
I had come from more of like a traditional, like, we are going to produce this MIDI and put this automation on here, and I'm going to mix at these levels and EQ that. And Alex is like, let's experiment for 10 years and mess with audio and mangle it and see what we can get. And who cares? Like like if you like the sound, then it sounds good.
Yeah.
And so now I feel like we've kind of blended so that that's now incorporated in my own music production, and he now has picked up on the more technical side of producing. And it was just like such a good amalgamation. His sound design technique is so based in audio and resampling, and it's again another coincidental incidence. But when I was taking those classes from Chi and Seppa, they were preaching resampling and randomization, and like get crazy results. Like don't go for something. Like don't try to think of a sound and then get it.
Right.
Just twist.
Just go.
Knobs. Just go. Just create. And like the less control you have, I'd call it this like kind of organized chaos, because I'll put a lot of stuff on macros and just like set their ranges so they don't get a little too wacky, but I'll just like a lot of random LFOs going on and just a lot of resampling. So trying to find stuff that I wouldn't think of is generally how I get sounds that no one would think of.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you know, every class I'll get someone who has just learned MIDI and has just learned how to use an LFO on a low pass, and they'll be like, well, that's not how I heard you make a dubstep wub. And I'm like, but have you heard of like a neuro bass synth where it goes, you know, like, and they're like, whoa. And I'm like, you're not going to get that on an LFO at a sync rate of 1/4, buddy. You gotta like, you have to have like 8 parameters moving around and doing their own thing and resampling it for minutes, like, and then taking just the best, like, even if it is just a sound that only happens like a couple of times, resample it for a few minutes and get some really good stuff. The worst thing that can happen is you delete some audio, which is free.
Unlimited tape, guys.
Yeah. So, it's so much fun working with him, and we're really excited to just be collaborating with everyone in the Twin Cities.
If you guys ever need a vocalist.
Yeah, I mean, the idea, I think, is to bring another, like, the undersung idea of this is that we all move up together. You know? This is, again, like, destroying that ego of, like, my music for you. You listen to my stuff and you must dance to my beats.
Yeah.
What if it was like the whole music community as a whole is like, we're this community. These are the songs that the community has been putting on lately.
Yeah.
And this is the space that the other part of the community has helped provide. Check out the food that another part of the community has brought to this space. Like, it's so, like, the end game collaboration is infinite, and people are not, we're just starting to tap into it. So, like, if we as a community can all come up together, that's going to succeed way more than one person preaching their stuff.
Yeah, put Minneapolis on the map in general instead of just like one person who can represent everybody, which is just not a thing.
Yeah, 100%. So it's not, the single producer pushing their own stuff is not sustainable. Yeah, but a community rising together is.
Hell yeah.
That was the dream of Alex, which I now share deeply, and I think that we are kind of spreading it like either wildfire or a mild STD.
Okay.
Hell yeah, dude.
STD butter on a smooth toast.
Yeah,
toast. Alrighty, y'all. Well, we've been here for about an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I think we're going to land this plane. And I think the last question I like to ask our guest is, what is something you would like to tell the Slam community? Something from Mike Rett to the people listening to the podcast.
So many
good things.
So many. I have way too many tips. There are a couple that I feel like I tell and people are really scared of hearing.
Ooh.
Use the delete key. There's Command Z for a reason. You can always undo stuff. I see a lot of people get caught up in trying to be perfectionist early on.
Yeah.
That will only stunt your growth.
Yeah.
They'll only ever slow you down. Nothing is ever perfect.
No.
So, like, you need to be able to experiment, take leaps and bounds, make a lot of stuff, delete most of it, find the best parts, and then, like, move on with your life. And if you can, like, I think that switch turns off when you go from MIDI to audio a lot. If you resample something,
be
willing to take what you've resampled, make a bunch of changes and then resample it again, and don't even save the original stuff. Just move forward. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's a big one that a lot of people sleep on.
Yeah,
You know?
that's great advice. I heard Il Gates say something about along those lines where he was like, good producers are able to abandon a bad idea quickly.
Yes.
Mhm.
Like you go,
100%.
you're experimenting, and when it's bad, just get it out of there and keep moving. Because
Yeah.
Unexperienced producers tend to be married to stuff that they worked on for too long,
Yes.
and don't want to like delete it because they put so much time in it, but it doesn't serve the track that they're working on.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. Delete
Yeah.
stuff.
So yeah,
it's
that's
fine.
So to lend to that point,
the thing
that's
that
very good
people,
point.
yeah, dude, I support that, and also him a lot, because he is a very talented and wise producer. But the thing that I think, the one saying that I'll tell people where this clicks is, you can always create more.
Yeah.
So
you can always create
mic drop.
Mic drop. Wait, the mic fell.
So you can always create more. Be okay with that. That's the point, right? We're here to create.
Yeah.
So
we're making art, I think.
Right, not to hoard and stash.
Mhm.
And if you twist one knob for 2 hours, you're not creating.
No.
Yeah.
You're obsessing.
Hell yeah, dude.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank you
being
for the
here.
tip, dude.
Thank
We appreciate
you.
talking, man.
I
That was
know, this is
awesome.
so fun. That felt like 5 minutes.
I know,
Right?
right? An hour just passed.
We're
What?
Next
we're
up,
cruising.
Next up is 1 hour on charcuterie board recommendations.
Let's do
and
it.
favorite
Ooh,
cheeses.
okay,
No,
part
I'm
two.
kidding.
Part 2 with charcuterie board recommendations. Let's go.
All
well,
right.
well, thank you for coming in, Mike Rat. Thank you for listening, everybody out there. We appreciate you.
Thank
We
you.
hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching SlamCast. Wasn't that a fun episode?
Want to become a member at Slam Academy? Go to slamacademy.com for more information.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.